Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome back to 10 Count. I'm Steve Ball, but on today's edition, I am talking to Rohan. How you doing today?
Good, man. That was a good intro.
Uh, I try to keep up the energy, you know. Three children are dragging me down, but the energy drinks are keeping me up.
Nah, you're full of energy. I love it.
Good, good. Yeah, nobody wants to be like, so remember that time in that match? You did that awesome
I've done,
thing.
I've done interviews where they're like that, and I'm just like, oh man, this
Oh,
is looking at my.
yes. I can imagine. I can imagine. And what's on your background? I see what we got. Some Attitude Era pictures and
Yeah, yeah.
classic wrestling.
So I got attitude one. These are all kind of someone drew these. I found them at a Comic Con, and I was
Awesome.
like, we can put them up. So I put like NWOs over here. So yeah, I'll give you a look.
Oh, nice.
NWO there. I got a bit of the 80s there, and then the Attitude Era.
Of
And I got
course.
like some of my stuff up there, but yeah, it's a work in progress.
I was gonna say I started watching in the new generation around 92, 93 when Bret Hart took over. So when Hulk Hogan would pop up randomly in the WWF to piss off my Bret Hart fandom, I was like, "What are you doing here? Who are you? Who are you? Weren't you in that? Were you in that Mr. Nanny movie or something like that? I don't know. But we're not here to talk about Hulk Hogan. We're here to talk about you. Uh, you were trained by Lance Storm, am I correct?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Australia, but I didn't start my career down there. So I when I decided I wanted to wrestle, I was like, I got to put everything into it. So I want to be trained by like a proper guy who knows what he's doing. So I moved my whole life and then relocated to Canada.
Wow. Because my introduction to Lance Storm is ECW, the Impact Players with Just Incredible, and I love that tag team so much. And then he was brought to WCW, and he held like every damn title there was there except for the world. And he ended up having so many titles, he handed them off to his Team Canada group. I think Elix Skipper got one. Hacksaw Jim Duggan turned on America and joined Team Canada. Very weird stuff. But being trained by Lance Storm has got to be nice because his wrestling career in the WWE didn't really pan out the way obviously everyone thought it would, but yet nobody has ever said a bad word about Lance Storm in his wrestling skills and his training skills. So what was that experience like?
So I think with Lance, I don't even want to say he's underrated because if people know and have watched his career, like his work speaks for himself.
Yeah.
So he's regarded within the whole industry as one of the best technicians out there, and he's known as a very safe worker. So people would put if someone's come back from injury or something, he told us stories where they would be like, "Oh, put him with Lance, have his first match back with Lance." So he's very like regarded in a very good and safe way like that. But as terms of training with him, he's very like um, he picks out the small details. So when you get scouted or go to the tryouts, the stuff that I learned from Lance very much stands out like a lot. People they'll look at you and be like, "Well, you were trained by Lance Storm." Like sometimes they'll just be like, "I've had that happen to me before." You but you trained by Lance Storm? I was like, "Yeah, yeah." But I got to give him credit because I feel like if I didn't go with Lance, I feel like I my career took off really quick, and I signed like my first contract. I signed within 2 years, and I feel like a lot of it is because I was trained by Lance, and I was trained by someone who knows what he's doing. And I remember the reason, another reason why I went to Lance, and like obviously I knew him before, but I remember listening to one of Austin's podcasts once, and he was saying that if you want to be a wrestler, you got to make sure you go to someone who knows what they're doing, because if you learn a bad habit early on, it's really hard to snap out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've come across wrestlers now where like they'll be told, "Hey, what? Don't do that," but they'll do it anyway, not on purpose. They're just wired that way. That because it's so early on, it's so hard to rewire. So I was like, okay, so going to him, it's like he makes sure that you have all the basics down pat and don't have those bad habits, which will like um it won't like it like just say if you've got trained by someone who didn't know what he's doing, your first trainer, it won't say like you're not going to make it or anything like that. It's a faster way to go to someone who knows what he's doing, and it's a faster way and it's a safer way, I'd say.
Yeah, because you don't. Again, you said muscle memory is a very hard thing to break. If I'm always reaching this way and suddenly someone tells me to reach this way, my hands will be like, I don't know if I can do that because I'm so clued into what's going on there. But really, your beginning, at least on American TV for me, would be Impact Wrestling. You had a tryout there in July of 2017. What's the process like for a tryout? Because we always hear, run the ropes or let's gas them and see if they can continue on. What's the tryout process with Impact?
So that was more so they ran us through kind of like a fitness drill, so like to make sure that everyone is up to like a subpar shape. So it's not people that like are getting gassed out really quickly. So I remember doing a like a fitness thing at the beginning, but then it was very catered towards like wrestling. So they'd pair you up with, you'd have a few matches if they're looking into you. So some guys just had like one match, but I ended up having three, I think it was. So they'll pair you with different people and they want to see like how you work with different styles and different people you're paired up with. And because they'll be like, oh yeah, you're with him and you guys are going to go up in like 10, 15 minutes. So they kind of throw you in the deep end quick to see how you manage that and see if you panic and, things like that. So I feel like the Impact tryout, it was a joint one with Noah. So I feel like they were mostly looking at everything when it comes into the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Where I feel when it comes to, we can talk about that a bit later on, but when it comes to WWE tryout, I feel like it is that, but it is very like fitness heavy too, and WWE is more so like looking at footwork and like ring awareness and things like that, where Impact and Noah was from my experience was like they were wanting to see just strictly how you were in the ring when the bell's on, sort of thing.
Right, because we can talk about now, I guess, because of the WWE tryout, obviously someone has to reach out to you because, you hear that it's sometimes someone calls you, you call them. What was your process like with the WWE getting into the door and going into the performance center, and what was that process like?
So mine was after I finished up with Impact. I didn't have anything lined up concrete yet because I knew I wanted to go to WWE. So I reached out to them and they got back to me and then showing some interest in things and said, we want to bring you straight up to a tryout. I was like, great. Do you know when that'll be? They were like, just stay ready. We'll keep you posted. So at the time there was one coming up in Canada. So I was like, oh, what about the one? There's one in Toronto because I'm based here at the time. And then they said, we'll let you know. He got back to me. He was just like, hey, this is just going to be strictly Canadian tryout, like just with Canadian wrestlers. I was like, okay. So then at that point, I was like, oh, because I train like a lot and I put, my training schedule is pretty intense. So I was like, maybe I should just kind of just chill out, have a few burgers or something, like just relax for a bit.
Yeah.
And then a couple of days later, he got back. He's like, yeah, you're on the tryout. Change of plans. I was like, oh, wicked. So then
You're like, spit all the burgers out.
and then I was like, oh, no. And then, lucky I stuck to my training and stuff. So then when you get, so essentially for me, if you've got good referrals and you've made the right steps, I'm not saying it's easy to get a tryout by any means, but it's just if you've done those things, then those things are a lot easier to come by to be able to get the tryout. But once you got the tryout, the hard work is impressing them, obviously, right? So my tryout, I think it was in between 40 and 50 guys and girls, and I was the only one that ended up getting signed from it.
Wow.
Yeah, fortunately enough. But now Santino's daughter was on there as well, so she's signed now. So I guess technically now it's two, but directly from that tryout, I was the only one. So that one, it was more so like, yeah, they try to gas you out and then to see how you react and to see how your attitude is. Because sometimes when you see even people training at the gym, when they're really gassed out and then if someone starts asking him or something or someone annoys them because they're so like tired, some people get irritable. So then they'll kind of like back talk. So if they're tired, so when you're tired and then someone's telling you, hey, that's not right, you got to do this, you got to do that, some people like crack. So it will show the type of person that you are, which I think is a really good thing. And it shows people that actually tried and trained for it. So like if there's someone that's getting gassed out in 5 minutes, you're like, did you have any prep work for this? Because they give you enough notice to get into shape.
Oh, okay.
So like,
Yeah.
yeah, they give you a good 4 weeks. Sometimes even longer, it depends. But 4 weeks is usually what I've heard and how it was for me. They do that, and then obviously you'll have to cut a promo and keep it in a minute time frame. You'll end up having a match. So they kind of touch base on everything, and mine was like a 3-day tryout. And nowadays, even when I was at the PC, they started doing like 1 weeks. So then someone would come down for a full week and then join our classes, and then they would see that way. Because then I feel like that way you kind of find out more about them instead of just trying to find out who they are in the first few days. So I think they're starting to do that now. I think they're doing it a bit in the PC as well,
That's interesting.
in the US.
It's interesting you say that because about the fact that you gas you out and start trying to kind of ask you questions to see if you'll crack a little bit, because you can be the best at your job, but nobody wants to work with an asshole. So, you know, maybe
Exactly.
they're trying to weed them out. You don't want 50 assholes working at your company, and then you have a whole staff of assholes.
Exactly. And then that's when the environment's going to change if you've got people that their attitudes are just poor. Like there's plenty. I've come across people that like there's a lot of great wrestlers out there, but I've come across a few that their attitudes are quite poor, and and I've seen the way they treat other people. I'm like, man, like you're gonna get found out, and then a lot of them do, because it's like you know you can't treat other people like that. Like so, I do like that they really do push people, because it does really take the good ones out of the crowd, which is good.
That's good to hear. But when you work with Impact Wrestling, what did you enjoy your run there? Because I've talked to a lot of people, and obviously, you know, everyone has a different experience working for everybody. And it felt like your character was slightly like pigeonholed into being like a slight stereotype. And I did you feel that way, or were you just happy to be there and cashing checks?
So my thing was I was only 2 years in when I signed with Impact, like 2.5 years in or something. So for me, I was like, I'm gonna be a sponge and soak up all this knowledge, because before I started wrestling, my goal was to get to WWE. So I'm like, let me soak up everything I get. And then the people I worked with in Impact, everyone was minimum at least 10 years experienced in at that time. So I was working with all these great guys, and even talking to some of the girls there as well. They were great. And I was just like a sponge and soaking it up. And the way that I was treated backstage and even by the staff and everything, it was a great, for me, it was a great experience. I feel like in terms of my character, we were quite kind of limited to what we were doing with the Desi Hit Squad, because it was like appealing to the Indian market.
Mm-hmm.
But we did, with some of our promos, we did get to showcase a bit of our personality. But I feel like if we did it a little bit longer, it would have eventually stemmed into us being more so ourselves kind of thing. But then it obviously just didn't get to that point. But from my experience, I thought it was great, and I'm still on great terms with them as well.
Because like I think even after you were gone, like Rohit Raju, like his character finally, I felt like broke out. He won the X Division Championship. He was allowed more mic time. His personality started showing up. There was so much more there than there was, I think, feel like beforehand. But you know, each character, each decision, everything changes as time goes on, obviously. But you know, whatever. But with your experience working with the WWE, NXT UK was your brand. Where did that land in your achievements? Because you said you wanted to work for the WWE. NXT UK technically is obviously WWE, but it always felt like it was on its own island. Now, did you feel like that when you were there as well?
I don't think so. So like when I was there, and like especially even at the PC, it very much feels like WWE. And then the people that are like coaching us and stuff, like when I would have my matches, Shawn Michaels and Matt Bloom are in Gorilla, like one of the arguably the greatest of all time, is sitting there watching, critiquing, and giving you feedback about your matches. When you're at the Performance Center, there's guys like William Regal there. There's like, you know, James Mason, Johnny Moss, Robbie Brookside. Like, there's so many guys that, like, when you see these guys, you're like, oh, this is, and then you look around, there's like all the WWE logos, you're in the WWE rings. Even at the back, they've got all these old school props from all the times that the WWE would come to the UK. So that was cool to see. So it very much does feel like a WWE thing. I've heard some people how they're like, it's kind of like an own island or something, because it's like their own kind of clique or something, as some people have said. But I didn't find that at all. I kind of felt because I've experienced being like extras on WWE a few times, so it seemed like the same sort of feeling. It just felt like it was it was obviously it was NXT, so this is before you get called up, so you're aware this is like everyone's at that point. But it did very much feel like a WWE thing. And in terms of like when I signed my contract, definitely did like the feeling I got was like, oh, like I've got to WWE. Like every time I'd get my pay, it was from WWE, and like I'd have all the merch given to me and everything. So that was really cool. And I feel like especially doing the outside, like the media stuff was awesome. Like I was one of the top that did most of the media there. So it was something that when I would have these interviews and stuff, I'd be like, you're repping the company, and you're proud to do that. And it's just, I feel like those things, apart from obviously wrestling on TV and stuff, that was really a big thing where I'm like, oh damn, like I'm in WWE. But saying that, obviously the goal is to get to main roster. But from what I've experienced so far, it's been great.
Nice, because I've talked to other NXT UK wrestlers, and some of them were like, oh well, the promotion, like, because I would watch Raw, SmackDown, and you might see a commercial for NXT, NXT UK. If I saw a commercial, you knew they wanted you to watch that one particular episode. Walter versus Dragunov was a very heavy commercial driven. Come watch this match; it's going to be incredible. Versus the rest, it didn't feel that way. And again, I don't work there, so I have no idea the decisions of why or things that are happening. I'm not complaining that it didn't happen. It's more of you have a brand. Why aren't you showcasing it more? Maybe it was just a straight W Network, Peacock, and you're already watching Peacock, you're already watching the W Network, so maybe you'll stumble upon this. Though eventually NXT UK did close, and the rumors, and they announced that NXT Europe will open eventually. Now, what was the reason that you were not going to be part of NXT UK in the WWE anymore?
So it was. So what typically the plan is for NXT is what like Triple H has said it a lot of times is they want to expand it and make like an NXT India, maybe a Japan, Australia, like obviously Europe now. So it's one of those things where the expansion was going to happen anyway, and I feel like what coming from their point of view, what they want to do is kind of have like a fresh restart and a fresh expansion when it comes to launch NXT Europe. So it's like a bigger impact. That from my point of view, that's how I kind of look at it.
Yeah.
For everything, the way they did it and everything, they didn't do it like I've read reports. They did it super professionally. They didn't do anything the wrong way. Like for me, it was great on good terms with them. And to my knowledge, from what they've told me, is I'm likely to come back to NXT Europe as long like if just in case I decide to retire tomorrow, which is not happening. Like I wouldn't be there. But if I'm still wrestling, like I'd be part of NXT Europe because I know I'd be a big I'm beneficial to the company and everything. So what they had to do in order to launch it, I feel like this is definitely the best thing to do because otherwise we would have just been waiting. All of us would have been waiting for 6 months to a year. So now it's like it's cool because at least we can all go out and do independent shows and travel and get more matches under our belts because we were just strictly doing TV there. So in that regards, I feel like I kind of at first it's kind of like this kind of sucks, but then when you look at the bigger picture, you're like, oh no, actually, do you know what? I think this is probably the way to go. So I think it was the thing that they had to do. And I feel like it's the best thing for the overall brand.
Right. For a business standpoint, obviously, you need to, if you want to start a new company, but use kind of the same legs that you built, you don't want to keep running one while trying to open up another while doing the same thing. Obviously, it's not a smart business.
Exactly.
People forget wrestling business. I always hear the wrestling part, but I always forget the business part of it, unfortunately. But what was your relationship like with Shawn Michaels? Is he traveling back and forth from America to the UK for all these UK tapings?
Yeah, he was. He would come they would fly over. So they'd have a group, especially with the coaches as well, that would come over.
Yeah.
But then when COVID happened, there was some restrictions. So what they ended up doing was they set up like a guerrilla in Orlando, so it'd be kind of like through our gorilla as well, so it was all connected,
Mhm.
which was really cool. But yeah, Sean, like the way he talks about NXT UK, it was like his baby, and he was so invested in everyone. He I had a great relationship with him, and he very much took the time, like from my just judging by my experience, like to get to know me and stuff. Like I remember we had like about a 1 hour uh, Zoom conversation. It was just like he just wanted to get to know me and stuff, which was really cool. And he just after all the matches, he'd give you like straight up feedback if it how it was and stuff. And then Matt Bloom's another guy in particular as well that he would give you watch your matches back and give you like advice on what to do and everything. So the knowledge I got from getting better and like learning from these guys is like second to none, because these guys are like have been everywhere and have done it. It's like, so getting to learn from those guys is what's gonna, as long as your ears are open and you're willing to take that, because I feel like a lot of not so much in the performance center, but even going out on independent shows now, for some reason I don't. There's a lot of guys that don't want to take criticism. They
Mm.
kind of feel like that it's a bad thing. Which, like, if I have a match now and I ask someone to watch it, and then I go back and I was like, "How was it?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, it was a good match," and that was it. Like, I'm bummed because I want something that like I want to work on, or be like, "Oh, did you notice something that I should have done differently?" or something like that. Like, that's how you're going to get better. And I remember um, William Regal was telling me and his son Charlie that Daniel Bryan still comes up to him for feedback. And then William Regal's like, "What do you want me to tell you? Like, you're like, I can't really critique you anymore." And then, but someone like Brian is still going and asking for feedback, and he's like arguably one of the best right now. So
Yeah.
I feel like to get better and to keep getting better, and what sets you apart from the crowd is you got to be open to that, to learn. I feel like a lot of people take that as like a dig, which it's not, but it definitely separates people that are probably going to make it, and then the ones that don't, I guess, at the end of the day.
I gotta say, I have had a pleasure talking to you about your Impact run, your WWE run. I hope, and when NXT Europe opens up, that they bring you back in, because clearly you have a spotlight on you that needs to be brighter. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here on 10 Count. Rohan! I am pumped. You're pumped. We're all pumped for what's next for you. But I've been Steve Fall. He's been Rohan. Have a great day. And remember, Daniel Bryan's married to a Bella twin. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Bye-bye.